Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and you're watching Paleo 101, where we talk about fossils, minerals, and everything recorded in the Earth's rocks. Wow, I haven't said that intro in a long time. One of the questions that I occasionally get is, what are the types of tools that you use to go and retrieve fossils from the field? And today I wanted to talk about a little bit of the variety of different tools that I have in order for me to collect fossils out in the field. And one of the things that I wanted to start with are some of the hard steel tools, and then some of the more packaging material that I use to wrap fossils, and then all of the things that I put the tools in, such as backpacks and a variety of different things. So one of the things that I use is, of course, this handy dandy rock hammer or a rock pick. This is famously called a geologist pick and is known as the Estwig hammer or the Estwig pick. And it is made out from the company that makes this is in Rockford, Illinois. So if you want to find this, sometimes you got to go to the source, and that is in Rockford, Illinois. But I actually bought this hammer, or I bought this pick on Amazon. So these are actually not too expensive. I believe I paid maybe about $15 to $20 for this particular pick. So they're not as expensive. There are not that many hardware stores that actually use these, or there's not many hardware stores that sell these anymore. So you probably have to go online, or you have to go onto different places to in order to order these particular types of rock picks. So this is the one that has the sharp end to it, and it's got the flat end here. If you want to actually hit a rock or break off a chunk of material, you want to use this end. If you're trying to maybe hang on to a particular outcrop, or if you want to try to take a fossil out of the outcrop or something like that, you want to use this end. So there's two types. There's the sharp-ended here, and then you have a flat-ended pick as well. And the flat end is really good for like splitting shales. And if you really want to split shales, you want to use the flat end of this particular type of hammer. But there are also types of hammers like this that is more used for hard rock geology, so things that are much harder than like shales, such as limestones, or any other type of hard rock material. It's not just fossils, or not just rocks that contain fossils, but hard rocks in general, like maybe granites, like igneous or metamorphic rocks, or mainly like crystalline rocks like that. So a rock pick like this, or an S-twing hammer, or the geologist pick, is a really good pick to use to collect fossils with. Now, if you're collecting fossils with this particular type of pick, you want to make sure that you use safety goggles. Because if you're hammering a rock, sometimes there's pieces of rock that can fly out, and you don't want that to, hit in your eye. Even though that I'm wearing prescription glasses, I make sure that I also put these over my prescription glasses just in case. It doesn't give me a blurry view. I'm able to see the material that I'm collecting. So even if you do have prescription glasses, make sure that you do wear safety goggles or safety glasses too, just as an extra protection. Make sure you also wear gloves as well. If you're working with hard rocks like limestones or granites or whatever like that, you want to make sure that you're wearing the right hand covering material, such as like good gloves. I don't have any to show you at the moment, but there's some cases where I don't use gloves. But in cases like hard rock geology, you want to make sure that you're using good sturdy gloves to grasp onto material, or making sure that you don't hit your hand. And I've made that mistake in the past before, where I wasn't wearing any gloves, and I have gotten some not terrible injuries, but I've definitely bled from my fingers because I hit my hand with the hammer by accident because I was too excited getting the fossils out of the rock. And I hit my hand with the hammer, and it hurt really bad, and it bled. So you want to make sure that you're wearing the right hand covering as well as wearing safety goggles. Another thing that you can use to get fossils out of the rock is a trowel, a garden trowel. Again, most of these particular tools that I'm going to be talking about, you can actually find at your local hardware store, like say an Ace, or you can also find it in the Walmart section if they have a hardware section in the Walmart, Target, or you can find it at a Home Depot, or anywhere that you may find a hardware store anywhere you live, and particularly in the United States, you can find these types of tools. So a garden tool is really good for digging and getting right into the material and wanting to retrieve a specific type of fossil. So having a garden tool like this or a garden trowel is a good tool to have in your backpack. One of the other things that you can use is chisels. So I use a variety of different sizes of chisels. Chisels allow you to hammer away a particular fossil or a particular rock to retrieve the fossil. So I have a variety of different sizes of chisels, and you can find these again at your local hardware store. They're not too expensive. I bought these at Walmart. They're about maybe $25 or so. They come in a variety of different sizes. So you want to use those. So those are some of the bigger ones, but I also have a much little bit of a smaller one. And typically what you do is you take your hammer and you just do that particular hand motion, and that will allow you to focus on a particular specimen that you want to get out of the rock. So having chisels, a variety of different sizes, will help you to retrieve a specific types of fossil. You don't always have to use a particular chisel. Screwdrivers works just as perfectly. Getting your trying to get a particular fossil out of the outcrop and wiggle it out of the outcrop is actually really helpful. These tools that again they're really pretty cheap depending on what you're trying to pay for. So these particular tools maybe can be about like maybe $5 to $6. So screwdrivers are really good. You can see it's got like dirt on it, so I've used this pretty well. So screwdrivers work just as great as chisels too, but screwdrivers are really good for like taking a fossil out of the rock, maybe wanting to dig something out, and these are actually good as chisels too. So you can actually take your rock hammer, and also do that exact same action. And it may not work to the best of abilities like that of a flathead chisel, but it will still get the job done. Another thing that you can use if you want to pick up small fossils is tweezers. There are a particular variety of different sizes of tweezers. This is a large one, but you can pick up tweezers, and that just allows you to pick up small fossils. If you're looking for like small like microfossils and things like that, or like teeth or small shelly fossils, you can use tweezers to pick up a particular specimen. So those are just some of the hard like steel tools that I use. I use some others, but I just have those on my selection at the moment. One of the things that I also use if I'm going out in the field, you want to make sure, of course, you have all those tools, but you also want to make sure that you have the bag to carry the tools too. So I have a bag here that I carry all of my tools. This is a really good bag. This is pretty expensive, but it really is a good bag to. It's got like different compartments to put tools in, and it's really good for carrying out in the field. Now, one of the things that I don't really do is I don't carry my tools and the fossils in the same bag. I typically have a separate bag for my specimens, and I have a separate bag for the fossils. Sometimes I may bring the bag that has all of my tools in, and I may take some of the tools out and put them in a separate bag, and then take it out in the field. And so I don't have a lot of weight on me, because you definitely, if you're collecting a lot of rocks or a lot of fossils in the field, you want to make sure that you want to have a light weight as possible, because that's just going to help you collect a lot more fossils, and it's going to be a much better weight on your back. And you don't want a lot of rocks, or you don't want a lot of weight on your back with the tools and with the specimens in the same bag. So I recommend carrying two separate bags for your specimens as well as for your tools. Or what you can do is you can put the specimens with the tools, but make sure that it is light as possible. You don't want to bring all of your tools. And have selected tools. If there are tools that you don't particularly need in the field, leave those in your bag, or leave those in the separate bag. Take the tools that you need, as well as have the space for packing specimens in, and that will have it's much easier, and it's a lot more lighter on your back, and it's a lot more easier to carry in and out of the field. So I recommend carrying two different bags, one for specimens, one for tools. So packaging material for specimens. Again, if fossils can be very fragile. If you're dealing with like hard brittle rock like shale or siltstone or sandstone, for example, It's really important to carry out specimens and making sure that you have the right amount of packaging material. Now, if you're dealing with like vertebrate fossils, many paleontologists, vertebrate paleontologists specifically, use plaster and burlap. But if you're dealing with small invertebrate fossils, like maybe collecting a crinoid or a trilobite, you want to make sure that you have things that is it's going to help keep the fossil safe. So, of course, tinfoil is a really good packaging material. Tinfoil is good. Um, it gets the job done. You can take a piece out and you can wrap the fossil that way. So tinfoil, I typically bring tinfoil out in the field. I also bring bubble wrap as well. Bubble wrap is also really good, and I usually wrap it up with tape or I put a rubber band over it, so that way the fossil is protected as it's being transported out of the field. So tissue paper will work well as in that case as too. But I recommend having a much more stronger packaging material like bubble wrap or tinfoil. As well as containers. So I use a variety of different sizes of containers. You can find these at your arts and crafts section. They typically have this foam on it, so for protection of brittle material. So I typically use these and I put them in drawers. So these are really good. They come in a variety of different sizes. You can find these at your local, typically at an arts and crafts store or a hobby store. They will typically have these here. And if I have like some medication, I typically save these like pill bottles. I like to put some specimens in pill bottles. So if you have some pill bottles that are empty, or if you're getting ready to throw away pill bottles, I would save these for specimens. So I typically have some old unused pill bottles, and make sure that you, of course, take the labeling off and things like that for your medication, so it's not so you're not giving out important information in regards to in regards to medication. So I typically rip off the medication labels, and I have an empty bottle with that I could use to put fossils in. So again, a variety of different containers. Some can be big, some can be small, depending on how big or how small the specimen is. So I use a variety of different packaging material like boxes and bottles and for packaging out material and transporting it out in the field. So it really just depends on how big the specimen is and how flat it is and all of that. So having all of these particular things by your side will help you have a much more easier transport and a much more safer transport of that specimen out in the field. And then you can begin to prepare it once you get home, and you can take all that stuff out and you can work in it in the lab. And I'll probably make a separate video on some of the tools that you need in order to prepare out a fossil, depending on the matrix or depending on how hard the specimen is. So we have that here, brushes. So you can find paint brushes at, again, any arts and crafts store or at a hardware store. These came from a hardware store, both of these. So paint brushes are really good for, brushing away the specimen or brushing away any dirt or any sediment covering the specimen. There are a variety of different paint brushes that you can use. These are some of the more bigger ones, but there are smaller ones that you can use for much more smaller specimens. Or if you want to focus on a particular spot, you can use brushes, smaller brushes like these. When you're out in the field, you also want to make sure you're protected in regards to the clothes that you wear, and also the weather. You want to make sure that you're dressing appropriately for the weather. If you're in the hot sun, you want to make sure that you're, of course, dressed maybe with a short sleeve shirt. But you also want to make sure you have the right footwear as well. I typically have boots here. Give me just a second. Let me find them. So I typically have boots if I'm walking around rough terrain. You want to make sure these have much more flatter, but it also has these grooves on the bottom to help grip hard surfaces or rugged surfaces. So I wear these boots. If you're in mud, you want to also make sure you wear the right footwear for mud. These are steel-toed, and so if a rock falls on this, your foot will be mildly protected. You still want to make sure that you're wearing good boots that will protect your feet if something was to happen in regards to like maybe wildlife or again a rock fall or something like that. You want to make sure that you have the right proper footwear in order to walk across rough terrain, or if you cross any animals and they don't bite into your shoe, you'll have the right protection of your feet for this. A lot of the field work that I typically do is along roadsides. So you want to make sure that you're wearing the proper like particular vest. So you want to make sure that you're wearing a safety vest like this. So I wear this if I'm ever on the roadside looking for fossils. These are bright colors. So the bright colors will actually allow you, that you will be seen with these bright colors. Even during the nighttime, there's reflection of these colors. So you want to make sure that you're wearing a safety vest, which is really important. Another thing that you want to wear is wearing the proper hat. So if you're out in places like a quarry, that vest is very important. But you also want to make sure that you're wearing a hard hat as well. So if there was a rock fall, your head will be protected. But if you're also out in the sun, you want to make sure that you're wearing a nice hat, one that will absorb the sweat. If you're out in the hot sun or if you're in cold weather, you want to make sure that you're wearing maybe a nice warm hat, like a cap, to protect your ears and protect your face in the cold. Another thing that you can use in the field is a hand lens. So you can find these at like your hobby shop or something like that. Typically 10 times magnification is really good. And typically what you do is you wrap it around, or you put it around your neck. And so when you're out in the field, you can have a particular specimen, for example, just to demonstrate, you can actually look close at it in the field. So this is typically 10 times magnification is what I recommend. And it's typically called a loop or a geologist loop. And geologists and paleontologists definitely use these out in the field. I never leave without my hand lens. I never leave without my rock hammer hand lens. It's really important to have these in the field. So I make sure to kind of wear it around my neck so I can have access to it if I'm in the field looking at a particular specimen. One other thing before we leave is you want to make sure that you're writing down the stuff. You want to make sure that you're writing down information about the location and what that particular specimen is and the coordinates, where that particular fossil is geographically located. So you want to make sure that you're writing as much information as possible, because if you don't have information attributed to the fossil, that's going to be really hard when a paleontologist wants to go back and do research. They're not going to have a good information on that particular specimen. So I make sure to label every single specimen, and I make sure to write down as much information as possible that is attributed to that particular specimen. Because if a paleontologist wants to go back and look at my notes and see what that particular specimen is and where it was found, they'll have access to it because the information will all be there. You also want to make sure that you're writing down things like note cards, that you have maybe a pack of note cards, whether that is like 3-ruled note cards or blank note cards. You want to make sure that you're writing particular information and putting it with the specimen. It's really important for that, because if you're collecting a specimen and you don't have the proper information, it's going to be very hard to rely on your memory to hear or to figure out where that particular specimen was located. So I make sure when I'm out in the field, I write down that particular specimen, where it was collected, the date, the formation, and everything that needs to be associated with the specimen, so a paleontologist or a collector can go back and have good information attributed to that specimen. So that's just really good information that I really wanted to touch in about. And I hope that you really enjoyed this video. Let me know if I'm missing anything, or let me know if there are other tools or that you recommend in collecting fossils. But right now, this is my toolbox. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. You want to make sure that you have a pail. So you need, if you want to carry heavy specimens out in the field, or heavy specimens out of the field, you want to make sure that you have something to carry. You want to make sure that you have something to put it in. So having a pail right by your side is really important. And I believe that's all the information I wanted to talk about. Again, if you have any other questions, post them in the comments or link, have any comments down below. Let me know. And this is Paleo 101. I'll see you guys later with another video.